the envoy from Earth. The Grand Council chamber glittered beneath the light of 1,000 bioluminescent panels, high above the central axis of Galactic Core Station. Representatives from over 200 species filled the arena, scaled, feathered, metallic, and formless, arranged in a swirling spiral around the polished obsidian dais at the center. Today was a historic day. The humans had finally arrived. A murmur rippled through the assembly as the Earth delegation stepped forward. Compared to the grandeur of the assembled galactic civilizations, the humans seemed almost laughably plain. No ornate exoskeletons, no shimmering skin adaptations. Just soft, bipedal creatures, draped in simple but elegant suits. They bowed slightly, an archaic gesture from their homeworld, before standing quietly, hands folded in front of them. The lead human, a woman named Ambassador Elena Ruiz, smiled warmly. "Honored delegates of the Galactic Council," she began, her voice smooth and modulated through the universal translators. "Humanity thanks you for the invitation to join this august body. We come in peace, seeking only cooperation and mutual understanding." A flicker of amusement passed between some council members. Of course they did. Every primitive species said the same thing at first. The humans would learn their place soon enough. Some minor bureaucratic outpost, perhaps, or as trade intermediaries for more established powers. Still, there was something unsettling about the way the humans moved. They were graceful, yes, but restrained, as if every motion was calculated, every breath measured. Counselor Varlix of the Krelak Swarm, a massive insectoid diplomat, leaned toward his neighbor, chittering softly in his native tongue. Soft skin, fragile bones, high emotion quotient. They will fold easily under pressure. The humans, of course, were too polite to react, even if the translation had surely been delivered to their earpieces. Over the next hours, humanity formalized its entry into the council. They accepted observer status without protest. They agreed to stringent trade restrictions without negotiation. They volunteered for cultural exchange programs with species that had historically used such opportunities to assert dominance. Their humility was almost embarrassing. Later, at the reception, Ambassador Ruiz mingled seamlessly among the delegates. She asked questions, so many questions, about customs, about laws, about traditions. She listened attentively, occasionally nodding or offering a carefully placed compliment. "You honor us with your wisdom," she said to a Vokari chieftain whose people still solved diplomatic disputes through ritualized bloodsport. "You have much to teach us," she said to the Tsuller, whose economic model revolved around debt enslavement. The aliens preened under the attention, privately marking the humans as eager pupils at best and pliant subordinates at worst. But had any of them noticed how the humans moved through the room? They touched nothing. They left no scraps of skin, no stray hairs. Their bodyguards, indistinguishable from the diplomats themselves, kept perfect, unbroken sight lines across the chamber. Each human interaction, each conversation, was logged instantly onto slim devices worn like jewelry. They were learning, absorbing, calculating, and somewhere, buried in the vast data archives aboard their diplomatic cruiser, quiet algorithms were already mapping the web of galactic influence, finding weaknesses, tracking rivalries, estimating the fracture points of ancient alliances. "Charming little predators," murmured a shadowy figure from the sidelines. A Zither observer, one of the few species whose paranoia approached humanity's own. But no one listened to the Zither. They were considered relics of an older, harsher time. As the festivities wore on, Ambassador Ruiz stood at the viewing window, gazing out across the swirling starfields. Beside her, Counselor Varlix clacked his mandibles, attempting small talk. "Your species has much to learn about survival beyond your cradle world," he said condescendingly. Ruiz turned her smile toward him, warm and disarmingly humble. "Of course, Counselor. We are eager students." And in that moment, a subtle glint crossed her eyes, not of submission, but of calculation. But Varlix, like the others, missed it. He was still thinking of humanity as prey. Ruiz turned back to the stars, her hands loosely folded behind her back in a posture that, to human historians, was older than nations. The stance of an officer inspecting a battlefield yet to be claimed. The first mistake. It started with a single act of arrogance. The Zari Confederation, a mid-tier power known for their opportunism and disdain for newcomers, saw the humans' meekness and mistook it for weakness. They moved quickly, eager to establish dominance before humanity could gain allies. A diplomatic shuttle, the ISS Calypso, was traveling through a Zari-controlled sector, ferrying a small human delegation to a routine cultural exchange. The Zari ambushed them just outside the Zaven Gate. There was no warning. One moment, the Calypso was alone in the void. The next, it was surrounded by sleek, bone-white Zari frigates. Energy beams sheared off the ship's engines with surgical precision. Escape was never an option. Captured without casualties, the human diplomats were brought aboard the Zari flagship, the Vrexel's Pride, and detained. Officially, it was an administrative delay. Unofficially, it was ransom, leverage, a lesson. The Zari broadcasted a thinly veiled demand to the Galactic Council. If Earth wished to see their people returned unharmed, they would pay a humiliating tribute: technology, raw materials, and, most critically, a permanent recognition of Zari supremacy in 3 shared sectors. For a day, the Council waited for the humans' response. Most assumed they would capitulate immediately. After all, what choice did they have? They were new, isolated, soft. Instead, humanity went silent. No speeches, no protests, no official communiques. Just silence. Then the black ships arrived. At first, the Zari mistook them for asteroids, irregular, low-emission objects coasting toward their homeworld. It wasn't until they adjusted course mid-drift that the Zari defense net sounded the alarm. But by then it was far too late. The Nightshade Fleet, as it would later be known, struck without fanfare, without mercy. Surgical railgun strikes pierced the orbital defense arrays. Electromagnetic pulses shredded planetary communications. Kinetic missiles, guided by pinpoint AI precision, disabled key infrastructure, military bases, shipyards, government centers. Not a single civilian target was touched. Not a single unnecessary shot fired. Within 47 minutes, the Zari Confederation, a civilization spanning 12 worlds, had been rendered militarily irrelevant. On board the Vrexel's Pride, the Zari captors stared in disbelief as a single human operative in matte black armor walked calmly through their corridors, dispatching resistance with brutal efficiency. The human diplomats, untouched and unharmed, greeted their rescuer with nods, as if they had expected the rescue all along. When Ambassador Ruiz stepped onto the bridge of the Vrexel's Pride, she found the Zari commander, High Marshal Zivrak, quivering under guard. She offered him the same polite smile she had worn at the council gathering. "Marshal," she said smoothly, "we regret this unfortunate misunderstanding. We hope that future interactions between our peoples will proceed more smoothly." The Zari commander, stripped of rank and pride, could only stare in silence. The council was stunned. Reports poured in, discreet, panicked, incredulous. How had the humans mobilized a precision fleet so quickly? How had they managed such overwhelming superiority without even a formal declaration of war? Officially, humanity apologized for the incident. Unofficially, the message was unmistakable. They were not prey. They had never been prey. They were predators who had simply learned to wear diplomacy like a well-fitted suit. In the weeks that followed, the council buzzed with quiet terror. Delegations that had once mocked humanity now sent emissaries laden with gifts and offers of cooperation. Treaties once dismissed as ceremonial were hastily revised to favor Earth. Behind closed doors, whispers spread. The humans are dangerous. The humans are watching. The humans will remember. Still, in public, the human diplomats remained gracious and deferential, offering smiles and handshakes, eagerly participating in galactic projects, asking thoughtful questions. As if nothing had changed at all. At the next council session, Ambassador Ruiz stood once again at the center of the Great Hall, surrounded by wary eyes. She bowed, just as she had the first time, and spoke in the same warm, measured tone. Humanity is honored to be among such wise and distinguished civilizations. We look forward to many years of peaceful cooperation. This time, no one laughed. And among the elder races, those who remembered darker eras before the Council's formation, a terrible realization began to take root. The humans hadn't survived their chaotic, violent world despite their nature. They had survived because of it, and now they had brought that nature with them. Cloaked in diplomacy, sharpened to a lethal point. Waiting, patient, smiling. Predators in silk. The Council had seen the humans act. Now they scrambled to understand them. Curiosity shifted to suspicion. Suspicion curdled into fear. Across the galaxy, research teams were ordered to dig into Earth's archives, historical databases, biological studies, psychological profiles. Everything that the humans had so openly offered during their initial diplomatic overtures was now scrutinized with desperate urgency. What they found chilled even the most hardened species. Humanity's homeworld, Earth, was a death trap by galactic standards. Predators lurked in every biome. Natural disasters ripped apart civilizations without warning. Disease evolved faster than medicine. Resource scarcity, shifting climates, and violent competition had been constants, not anomalies. Yet humanity had not merely survived. They had thrived. Their history was a relentless saga of conflict and conquest, betrayal and ambition. Empires rising and falling in brutal cycles, driven by wars so devastating that some alien scholars recoiled from the records in horror. And unlike most galactic species, who had evolved herd instincts or communal symbiosis, humans had evolved predation layered with cooperation, a rare, lethal combination. They worked together. They built alliances. But when threatened or opposed, they adapted, betrayed, and destroyed with ruthless precision. The oldest human philosophies, from Sun Tzu's Art of War to Machiavelli's The Prince, weren't aberrations. They were blueprints. Even in times of peace, humanity trained for war. Even in prosperity, they prepared for scarcity. Even in unity, they anticipated betrayal. The Council had misread humanity's diplomacy not because humans were skilled liars, but because humans were honest in a way the galaxy could not comprehend. To a human, a treaty was a tool. An alliance was a weapon. A smile was another way to bare teeth. Counselor Yurov of the Serene clans summarized it best during a confidential session. Humans are not diplomats who sometimes wage war. They are warriors who sometimes play at peace. The revelation shattered assumptions across the Council. Species who had built their civilizations on consensus and stability could not fathom a culture that saw conflict not as failure, but as opportunity. Species who feared death above all could not comprehend a people who charged into battle knowing they might die, and celebrated it as honor. Every facet of human design, from their adaptable bodies to their unpredictable strategies, spoke of a creature shaped not for survival and harmony, but for domination and chaos. Worse still, humanity was patient. They didn't seize power openly. They didn't demand tribute. They smiled. They offered aid packages. They sent advisors. They brokered peace between warring factions and then quietly acquired influence over both. On trading worlds, human merchants built supply chains faster than rival guilds could react. On border planets, human security consultants trained local militias to be self-sufficient, using human doctrine, human weapons, human loyalty. It was not conquest by fleet or fire. It was conquest by invitation. By the time the Council realized it, humanity's web had already begun to spread, invisible, patient, inevitable. Still, some clung to denial. Counselor Varlix of the Krelak Swarm, who had once dismissed humanity as fragile prey, argued for sanctions, containment, perhaps even war. But cooler heads hesitated. War? Against them? Against a species that could build an invasion fleet in months, fueled by an economy that had industrialized entire continents on Earth? Against a people who regarded hardship as mere sharpening of the blade? The Council weighed the risk and faltered. In the shadows of diplomatic corridors, in the whispered strategy meetings behind closed doors, a grim new consensus began to form. The humans could not be defeated, not without shattering the fragile galactic order humanity now carefully nurtured, an order the Council depended on as much as humanity did. They had brought predators into the heart of civilization, thinking they were training a pet. Instead, they had invited a wolf into their home, and the wolf was smiling. The new order. The shift was almost imperceptible at first. A treaty here, a trade agreement there, a peace summit hosted, a conflict mediated. Each time, humanity's role was modest, almost humble. Each time, humanity asked for nothing in return, at least nothing obvious. But the galaxy ran on debts, spoken and unspoken, and the humans were keeping careful track. Within a single standard cycle, Earth had positioned itself at the nexus of hundreds of minor alliances and partnerships. Human advisors served on economic councils. Human mediators resolved ancient blood feuds between species that had warred for millennia. The galaxy, desperate for stability, gladly leaned on humanity's willingness to help. And humanity, smiling, courteous, endlessly obliging, obliged. The Zari Confederation, once proud and arrogant, now relied on human security firms to rebuild their defenses. The Krelak swarm restructured their bureaucratic systems with the consultation of human administrators. Even the venerable Serene clans accepted Earth's financial assistance, unaware they were being slowly bound by iron chains of debt. No fleets had been launched, no planets occupied, no shots fired, and yet humanity was everywhere. Their ships patrolled trade routes. Their corporations managed critical infrastructure. Their cultural influence seeped into every aspect of galactic life, from entertainment to education to political discourse. 1,000 subtle threads woven into an unbreakable web. When a realization finally struck, it struck hard. In an emergency closed session, the Galactic Council gathered, not to debate if humanity was a threat, but whether anything could be done about it. Counselor Varlix slammed a clawed fist onto the conference table, mandibles flaring wide. "They have subverted us," he roared. "They have wormed their way into our homes, our industries, our minds." Counselor Yirov, ever the diplomat, shook her head gravely. "And if we move against them," she said, "who stands with us? The Zari? The clans? Half of them are already indebted. The others fear losing their human-brokered trade routes. Even now, Earth commands more loyalty than the Council itself." Silence gripped the chamber. It was true. Any aggressive action against humanity would fracture the fragile alliances that held the Council together, perhaps irreparably. Worse, humanity would have every justification to defend its allies, framing any conflict as an act of unprovoked hostility. They had been outmaneuvered, not by force, but by trust, by the illusion of friendship carefully cultivated over years. Ambassador Elena Ruiz stood once again in the heart of the chamber, watching the silent, brooding assembly. She did not smile as she had before. She did not need to. Her presence alone was enough. The galaxy knew now. She spoke softly, with the steady grace of a predator who no longer needed to bare its teeth. "Humanity has only ever sought peace," she said. "We have offered cooperation, assistance, friendship. We have asked for no thrones, claimed no worlds, demanded no tribute." She paused, letting her words settle. "And yet here we stand, accused not by our actions, but by your fears." The chamber shifted uncomfortably. Some looked away. Ruiz's gaze swept the assembly, not pleading, not challenging, merely observing. "We will not apologize for surviving," she said. "We will not apologize for thriving. And we will not apologize for succeeding where others faltered." A murmur rippled through the hall, a mix of awe, resentment, and grudging admiration. The humans had not conquered the galaxy. The galaxy had given itself to them, willingly, eagerly, one favor at a time. And now, the humans stood at the heart of it all, unshakable. As the council session adjourned, Ruiz lingered by the vast observation window overlooking the galactic core. Stars swirled in majestic arcs, ancient and patient. A junior human envoy approached her, hesitating. "Ambassador, was this the plan all along?" Ruiz smiled, faint and distant. "No," she said. "We hoped we wouldn't need it." She turned back to the stars, her hands folded behind her once more. "But we prepared anyway." Behind her, the galaxy moved on, unknowingly orbiting a new center of gravity. And the predators, cloaked in silk, continued to smile.